Welcome back everyone, because Season 8 Episode 12 of 90 Day Fiancé. Before the 90 days just delivered one of the most explosive hours we've seen all season, and trust me, if you thought the drama was slowing down, you were completely wrong. This episode proves that long-distance love sounds romantic until real life steps in and forces every hidden doubt, every ignored red flag, and every uncomfortable truth into the spotlight. Right from the start, the tension feels different. It's heavier. You can see it in their faces. These are no longer cute airport hugs and dreamy promises. This is reality knocking loudly. One couple finds themselves in the middle of a full emotional collision after secrets that were brushed aside earlier in the season suddenly resurface. What makes this confrontation so intense isn't just the accusations. It's the silence between them. The hesitation. The way one partner keeps asking for reassurance while the other struggles to maintain eye contact. You can almost feel the audience holding their breath, because this isn't playful arguing. This is relationship-defining territory. And when the truth finally starts coming out, it's not dramatic music that makes the moment powerful. It's the look of realization on their faces. The kind of realization that changes everything. Meanwhile, another couple is dealing with family pressure that reaches a boiling point. An engagement that should have been joyful instead turns into a battlefield of opinions, doubts, and emotional guilt. You can see how badly he wants approval. You can see how determined she is to stand by him. But family interference has a way of digging into insecurities that were already there. The conversation escalates quickly. Voices rise. Tears form. And suddenly what was supposed to be a celebration becomes a questioning of everything. Is this love strong enough to survive outside judgment? Is commitment enough when trust still feels fragile? That's the underlying theme of this entire episode. Trust. Who has it? Who lost it? And who may never fully regain it? There's also a moment in this episode that feels quieter but hits just as hard. One partner finally asks the question they've been avoiding all season. Not because they didn't want the answer, but because they were afraid of what that answer might mean. When you love someone long distance, you create a version of them in your head. But what happens when reality doesn't match that version? This conversation is raw. No yelling. No dramatic exits. Just honesty that stings. It's the kind of scene that reminds viewers why this show keeps pulling us back in. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. And it feels real. Then we have the long-awaited in-person meeting that fans have been waiting for. The build-up has been huge. The expectations even bigger. Traveling across the world for love sounds romantic until you step off that plane and realize this person is no longer a voice on your phone. They're standing right in front of you. The first hug is slightly awkward. The smiles are wide but nervous. You can sense both excitement and pressure. Because now there's no filter. No perfect camera angle. No curated messages. Just two people trying to figure out if the chemistry they felt online can survive face-to-face reality. The body language says a lot. There's warmth. But there's also hesitation. And that hesitation becomes the quiet question hanging in the air. Did we rush this? As the episode moves forward, emotions intensify across every storyline. One partner decides they've had enough of feeling unheard. Instead of shutting down like they did earlier in the season, they finally speak up. And when they do, it shifts the dynamic instantly. For weeks we've seen imbalance. One person constantly reassuring. The other constantly doubting. But in this episode, the power balance adjusts. The person who once seemed unsure now demands clarity. And that shift is empowering to watch. Because relationships can't survive on one person doing all the emotional work. At the same time, another couple struggles with cultural differences that are no longer small misunderstandings. What started as cute differences now feels like serious incompatibility. Lifestyle expectations, communication styles, even daily habits start becoming points of tension. The big question becomes, are these differences manageable, or are they signs of something deeper? Something permanent. There's also a scene involving a private confession that completely reframes how we see one of the cast members. Up until now, Viewers may have viewed them as overly emotional or dramatic. But when they explain their fears, their past relationship trauma, and why they react the way they do, it adds layers. Suddenly, it's not about overreacting. It's about protection. Protecting their heart from repeating old mistakes. And that vulnerability might be one of the strongest moments of the episode. Because it's honest. And honesty, even when messy, creates connection. As the episode builds toward its final act, tensions collide once more. A heated discussion turns into an ultimatum. And ultimatums rarely end well. One partner demands proof. Not promises. Not words. Proof. The kind of proof that can't be deleted or explained away. And the silence that follows that demand is louder than any argument. It forces both of them to confront a simple but terrifying possibility. What if love isn't enough? That question lingers heavily as the credits approach. No neat resolutions. No fairytale endings. Just real people facing real consequences of their choices. This episode doesn't rely on shock value alone. It relies on emotional stakes. Every conversation matters. Every tear feels earned. And every smile feels uncertain. What makes Season 8 Episode 12 stand out isn't just the fights or the revelations. It's the sense that we're approaching a turning point. Some couples look stronger after the chaos. Others look like they're barely holding on. And that unpredictability is what keeps viewers glued to their screens. Because in this franchise, love stories don't follow scripts. They follow emotion. And emotion is never simple. As fans watch these relationships unfold, it becomes clear that distance either strengthens bonds or exposes cracks that were always there. This episode leans heavily into that truth. It challenges the fantasy. It questions the commitment. And it leaves us wondering who will make it to the next chapter and who will quietly drift apart once the cameras stop rolling. And just when you think you've processed everything, one final scene hints that the biggest confrontation may still be ahead. A look exchanged. A conversation teased. A decision pending. That's how this episode closes. Not with answers, but with anticipation. And that anticipation is powerful. Because if episode 12 proved anything, it's that love tested under picking up exactly where we left off. The emotional weight of episode 12 doesn't fade after those final glances. It lingers. And what makes this hour so powerful is that the conflicts aren't random explosions. They are the result of weeks of small doubts stacking on top of each other. And now, those doubts are too heavy to carry quietly. One of the most intense developments comes from the couple who seemed stable on the surface earlier this season. For weeks, viewers thought they were the calm pair. The mature ones. The communicators. But episode 12 peeled back that illusion. Beneath their composed conversations was a growing imbalance. One partner has been bending constantly, adjusting, reassuring, apologizing. Meanwhile, the other has been questioning, testing, holding emotional distance as protection. That imbalance finally reached a breaking point. The turning moment came during what should have been a simple discussion about future plans. Instead, it became a referendum on trust. You could see the exhaustion in their posture, the frustration in their tone. One partner asked a direct question about commitment. The other answered carefully, almost too carefully. And that hesitation said more than the actual words. Because when someone pauses too long before confirming their feelings, it plants a seed. And seeds of doubt grow fast. What followed wasn't shouting. It was something more uncomfortable. Calm disappointment. And sometimes disappointment is colder than anger. Meanwhile, another storyline delivered one of the most shocking emotional reversals of the season. A cast member who has been defensive and guarded finally broke down. Not dramatically. Not theatrically, but honestly. They admitted fear. Fear of being used. Fear of being abandoned. Fear that history might repeat itself. That vulnerability completely shifted the narrative. Viewers who were frustrated with them earlier may now find themselves reconsidering. Because suddenly the reactions make sense. Trauma changes how people love. It changes how they argue. It changes how quickly they trust. And episode 12 did something rare. It showed that context matters. But just when empathy starts building, the tension spikes again. Another couple faces a cultural clash that can no longer be brushed aside as a misunderstanding. Expectations around gender roles, around independence, around public behavior. What once felt like minor friction now feels like fundamental misalignment. One partner wants adaptation. The other wants acceptance. And those are not the same thing. The dinner conversation that followed was one of the most uncomfortable scenes of the night. Not because of yelling, but because of stubborn silence. Neither person willing to fully bend. Neither person wanting to admit that love might not bridge this gap. The body language told the story. Arms crossed. Eyes looking away. Forced smiles that didn't reach their eyes. And when they finally addressed the core issue directly, it became clear that compromise might mean sacrificing something essential to who they are. That realization hung heavy. Then we returned to the couple who issued the ultimatum. The demand for proof didn't disappear after that tense pause. It escalated. One partner calmly explained that emotional security cannot survive on promises alone. They needed transparency, access, reassurance in action. The other partner looked conflicted. Not outraged. Not defensive. Just confronted. Because agreeing to that demand means surrendering privacy. It means acknowledging that trust has been damaged. And repairing trust requires humility. The conversation stretched longer than expected. Neither wanting to walk away. Both realizing this might define the future of their relationship. And in that extended silence, something powerful happened. For the first time, accountability entered the room. No more deflection. No more soft explanations. Just a direct acknowledgement that mistakes were made. That moment didn't fix everything, but it shifted the tone from argument to reckoning. Elsewhere in the episode, the long-distance fantasy continues to crumble under real-world pressure. The couple who just met in person begin experiencing the awkwardness that no one talks about enough. Chemistry online does not automatically translate into comfort in real life. Small habits suddenly become noticeable. Tone changes feel amplified. Even silence feels different when you're sitting side by side instead of texting miles apart. One partner tries to overcompensate with affection. The other seems slightly overwhelmed. And that imbalance creates subtle tension. They attempt to laugh it off, to keep things light. But underneath, you can sense the question neither wants to say out loud. Did we build something stronger in our imagination than it feels right now? That question lingers through their scenes. And as the episode nears its final act, the emotional temperature rises across every storyline. Decisions are looming. Flights will eventually go home. Families will expect answers. Visas have timelines. Love may be emotional, but reality has deadlines. One of the strongest closing moments involves a partner finally asserting boundaries that had been ignored earlier in the season. Instead of pleading for reassurance, they calmly state what they need moving forward. Respect, transparency, consistency. And if those needs cannot be met, they are prepared to reconsider everything. That quiet strength changes the dynamic instantly. Because boundaries shift power. And when someone realizes they are willing to walk away, the entire relationship recalibrates. The episode closes not with explosive yelling, but with uncertainty. With couples sitting in separate rooms thinking, processing, replaying conversations in their heads. No dramatic music needed. Just the weight of consequences. Episode 12 doesn't give easy answers. It gives turning points. Some relationships feel like they may grow stronger because the truth finally surfaced. Others feel like they're one conversation away from collapsing. And that unpredictability is what makes this season compelling. We are no longer watching fairy tale beginnings. We are watching real people confront whether love is enough when trust is shaken, when families interfere, when culture clashes, and when distance stops being romantic and starts being exhausting. And if this episode taught us anything, it's that the next chapter won't be gentle. Because once truths are revealed, you can't put them back in the dark. Pressure either evolves or collapses. There is no middle ground anymore. This season is no longer about butterflies and first impressions. It's about consequences. And next week could change everything as the emotional dust begins to settle from the ultimatums and confrontations. Episode 12 makes one thing painfully clear. Some of these couples are no longer fighting each other, they're fighting reality. And reality is much harder to argue with. The next sequence dives deeper into the couple who seemed the most unpredictable from the start. Their chemistry has always been strong, almost magnetic, but chemistry alone cannot stabilize insecurity. What we witness in this episode is the moment. Attraction collides with accountability. One partner admits they enjoy the passion, the intensity, even the jealousy to a certain degree. But enjoying drama and surviving it are two different things. The conversation turns reflective. For the first time, instead of defending themselves, they question themselves. Are we addicted to the highs and ignoring the lows? That level of self-awareness feels rare in this franchise, and it shifts the tone from chaos to clarity. But clarity can be uncomfortable. Because once you recognize a toxic pattern, you can't pretend you don't see it anymore. Meanwhile, another storyline quietly builds toward an emotional realization that may have long-term consequences. One partner begins noticing inconsistencies. Small details that don't quite add up. Nothing dramatic on the surface, but enough to create unease. And unease, when repeated, becomes doubt. The way this episode handles that doubt is subtle but powerful. Instead of an explosive confrontation, we see observation. Listening more carefully. Asking more direct questions. Watching reactions. And when the responses feel rehearsed instead of natural, that's when the tension truly spikes. Because sometimes it's not what someone says that alarms you. It's how they say it. In a separate scene, family pressure resurfaces in an even more intense form. A private conversation between relatives exposes concerns that were previously whispered but never said directly. Motives are questioned. Financial stability becomes a topic. Intentions are dissected. And the partner caught in the middle looks emotionally torn. Loyalty to love versus loyalty to family. It's a brutal position to be in. The pressure is visible in their posture. Their voice trembles slightly as they try to defend their relationship while also respecting their family's fears. It's not a simple right or wrong scenario. It's layered. Cultural expectations, generational differences, fear of manipulation, fear of embarrassment. All of it wrapped into one heavy conversation. As episode 12 moves